If you've ever been treated like you mattered less than everyone else in your own family, then you'll understand why losing my grandmother hurt more than words can describe. Because while everyone else saw money, she saw me. And after she passed away, one document would reveal just how much she truly knew. But before I tell you what happened, you need to understand who my grandmother really was. Hello, everyone. Before I share my story, please subscribe to the channel if you enjoy emotional family dramas, shocking betrayals, and satisfying endings. My name is Emily Parker. I'm 29 years old. And for most of my life, I felt invisible inside my own family. Not unloved, not abused, just forgotten. My parents always favored my older brother Jason. Jason could do no wrong. If he failed a class, it wasn't his fault. If he lost a job, life was unfair. If he made bad decisions, everyone rushed to rescue him. Meanwhile, I was expected to handle everything myself. Need emotional support? Figure it out. Need help paying for college? Work harder. Need encouragement? Don't be so sensitive. Eventually, I stopped asking. The only person who truly noticed was my grandmother, Eleanor Parker. To everyone else, she was Grandma Eleanor. But to me, she was home. She remembered birthdays, asked about my work, called me just to say she loved me, and unlike everyone else, she listened. Really listened. When I was 12 years old, I failed a school presentation and came home crying. My father told me, "Life isn't fair, Emily." My mother said, "Stop being dramatic." But Grandma Eleanor drove 40 minutes to see me. She brought chocolate chip cookies, sat beside me, and quietly said, "Sweetheart, never let one bad day convince you that you're not enough." I never forgot those words, because honestly, they changed my life. As I grew older, our bond became even stronger. Every Sunday afternoon, I'd visit her. We drank tea, played cards, talked about life. Sometimes she'd tell stories about Grandpa. Sometimes she'd ask about my dreams. And sometimes we just sat in silence, because with Grandma, silence felt peaceful. Meanwhile, the rest of the family only seemed interested in one thing: convenience. Jason visited when he needed money. My parents visited when they needed favors. But once they got what they wanted, they disappeared again. Grandma never complained. But I noticed, because loneliness leaves fingerprints. Then, 2 years before she passed away, Grandma received a difficult diagnosis: heart disease. Grandma received a doctor's warned us. I immediately rearranged my schedule. I reduced my work hours, spent evenings at her house, cooked meals, took her to appointments, and honestly, I would have done it forever if I could, because she had spent her whole life taking care of everyone else. Now it was my turn. But where was everyone else? Jason was too busy. My mother had social events. My father hated hospitals. Excuses, always excuses. Yet somehow, whenever money was mentioned, everyone suddenly had time. One evening, while helping Grandma organize old photographs, she held my hand. Her eyes looked tired, but her smile remained warm. Then she quietly asked, "Emily, promise me something." I smiled. "Anything." She squeezed my hand. "Promise me you'll never let people make you feel guilty for protecting yourself." I laughed softly. "Grandma, where is this coming from?" She simply smiled and changed the subject. At the time, I didn't understand. Later, I would. 6 months later, her health declined rapidly. The woman who had always seemed indestructible suddenly looked fragile. And honestly, watching her suffer broke my heart. I spent almost every night by her bedside, reading books, holding her hand, making sure she wasn't alone, because I couldn't imagine losing her. Then one afternoon, while I sat beside her hospital bed, she whispered, "Thank you." I smiled. For what? Tears filled her eyes. For loving me when nobody was watching. I started crying immediately, because those words meant everything. Grandma passed away peacefully 3 days later, and honestly, part of me died with her. The funeral was beautiful. People cried, shared memories, talked about how wonderful she was. But something bothered me, because suddenly, people who hadn't visited her in years were acting like they had been by her side all along. Especially Jason, especially my parents, and something about it felt wrong, very wrong. Then, less than 24 hours after the funeral, the conversation started. Not about grief, Not about memories, not about Grandma, about money. Jason openly asked, "How much did she leave?" My mother asked, "Did Grandma still have her savings account?" And my father said something I'll never forget. "Families should share everything equally." I remember sitting there in complete disbelief, because the woman we had just buried had already become a financial discussion. Then my mother turned toward me and casually asked, "Emily, Grandma trusted you. Do you know where her documents are?" Something about her tone made me uncomfortable, not sad, not grieving, expectant, almost excited. And suddenly, for the first time in my life, I felt afraid, because deep down, I knew this wasn't over, not even close. 3 days later, we were invited to Grandma Eleanor's lawyer's office. Everyone assumed it would be routine, simple, predictable. But none of us knew that Grandma had left behind something unexpected, something powerful, something that would change everything. And when one document was finally placed on the table, my entire family stopped breathing. 3 days after Grandma Eleanor's funeral, we all sat inside the office of her attorney, Mr. Howard Bennett. The atmosphere felt strange, not emotional, not peaceful, tense, because despite what everyone pretended, nobody had come there for closure. They had come for answers, financial answers. And honestly, that realization hurt almost as much as losing Grandma herself. Mr. Bennett had represented my grandparents for over 30 years. He was in his 70s. Professional, calm, and judging by the expression on his face, he already knew exactly what kind of family meeting this was going to be. He greeted everyone politely, then asked us to sit down. Jason sat confidently. My mother looked nervous. My father seemed impatient. And I just wanted to go home, because none of this felt right. Grandma had only been gone for 3 days. 3 days. And already, everyone was focused on money. After reviewing some paperwork, Mr. Bennett smiled kindly first. "Let me say how deeply Eleanor cared about her family." I felt tears forming again, because unlike everyone else in that room, he actually knew her. He wasn't talking about numbers, he was talking about her. But before he could continue, Jason interrupted. "How much was in Grandma's savings account?" The entire room became awkwardly quiet. Even Mr. Bennett paused. Then he slowly removed his glasses and calmly replied, "We'll discuss everything in order." Jason leaned back impatiently, but I noticed something. Mr. Bennett wasn't surprised, almost as if he expected that exact question. Then my father spoke. "Eleanor always believed family should help family." My mother nodded. "Everything should be divided fairly." Fairly. Interesting word. Because during Grandma's illness, nobody talked about fairness. Nobody divided responsibilities equally. Nobody shared hospital visits. Nobody shared sleepless nights. But now, suddenly everyone believed in equality. Then my mother turned toward me. "Emily, Grandma trusted you. You spent the most time with her." I nodded. "Yes." She forced a smile. "So naturally, if she left you anything extra." My father finished the sentence. "You'll do the right thing." I stared at them, confused. "What do you mean?" Jason answered immediately. "You know what we mean. If Grandma left you her savings, those funds belong to the family. Belong to the family. Not belong to Grandma, not belong to her wishes, not belong to her decisions. The family." Then Jason laughed. "Honestly, Emily, you owe us." I blinked. "Owe you?" He nodded confidently. "Grandma helped everyone, so whatever she left should benefit everyone." I couldn't believe what I was hearing, because somehow they had already decided how money they didn't own should be spent. Mr. Bennett quietly cleared his throat, but Jason continued. "Besides, Emily doesn't even have children." My mother nodded. "Jason has responsibilities. His family needs help." I sat there speechless, because apparently being unmarried and childless made my future less important, at least in their eyes. Then my father said words I'll never forget. "Emily, don't be selfish." Selfish. The same daughter who spent nearly 2 years caring for Grandma. The same daughter who canceled vacations, missed promotions, lost sleep, and held Grandma's hand during her final days.
Selfish, honestly. For a second.
I almost laughed, because the irony was unbelievable. Then Mr. Bennett finally raised his hand, and in a voice far firmer than before, he said, "I think Eleanor anticipated this conversation." The room instantly became silent. He opened a folder, removed a sealed envelope, and gently placed it on the table. My heart stopped. Because written across the front, in Grandma's handwriting, were 6 words. To be opened in front of everyone. Jason smiled confidently. He probably expected Grandma to tell us all to share equally. My mother smiled too. Even my father relaxed. Because they were certain, absolutely certain, that Grandma would support them. But they didn't know Grandma the way I did. Mr. Bennet slowly opened the envelope. Then he paused, looked around the room, and quietly said, "These instructions are legally binding." Suddenly, nobody moved, nobody breathed. Then he began reading. "To my beloved family. If you are hearing this letter, then I am gone. First, I hope you are remembering my life, not arguing about my money." I felt tears running down my face immediately, because that sounded exactly like Grandma. Then came the sentence that changed everything. "My savings account will not be divided equally." Jason's smile disappeared. My mother froze, and my father frowned. Mr. Bennet continued reading. "The person receiving my savings is the person who loved me when nobody else was watching." My hands started shaking, because suddenly I remembered Grandma's words in the hospital. "Thank you for loving me when nobody was watching." Jason interrupted angrily. "What does that mean?" But Mr. Bennet ignored him and kept reading. "Money should never reward guilt, obligation, or entitlement. It should reward love. Therefore." The room became silent. So silent I could hear my own heartbeat. And then Mr. Bennet finally spoke the words that changed my life forever. "Eleanor Parker leaves her entire savings account to her granddaughter, Emily Parker." Complete silence. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Jason looked like he'd stopped breathing. My mother's eyes widened, and my father simply whispered, "No." But the biggest shock wasn't even the money, because the next document Mr. Bennet picked up would completely destroy every argument they had just made. And when they finally saw Grandma's final evidence, nobody could accuse me again. For several seconds, nobody said a word. I couldn't even process what I had just heard. Grandma had left me everything. Not because I asked, not because I expected it, but because she chose to. And honestly, the money wasn't what made me emotional. It was knowing that even after her death, she still protected me. Jason was the first to react. "This is ridiculous." He stood up so quickly his chair nearly fell over. "Grandma would have never done that," my mother immediately agreed. "Emily manipulated her." My heart shattered. Not because I was surprised, because deep down, part of me had expected this. But hearing your own mother accuse you of manipulating the woman you loved most hurts differently. My father looked directly at Mr. Bennet. "This can't be legal." The elderly lawyer calmly adjusted his glasses, then he said words I'll never forget. "Everything Eleanor did was completely legal." Jason slammed his hand on the table. "She wasn't thinking clearly." Again, Mr. Bennet remained calm, almost too calm, as though he had already prepared for this exact moment. And apparently, Grandma had too. He opened another folder, this one much thicker. Then he looked directly at Jason. Actually, Eleanor anticipated these accusations. The room fell silent. Then Mr. Bennet removed several documents, medical evaluations, doctor statements, witness signatures, and official records proving that Grandma had been mentally competent when she updated her estate. Every argument Jason planned to make had already been destroyed. But then Mr. Bennet smiled softly and said, "There's one more thing." My stomach tightened, because apparently Grandma wasn't finished speaking. He reached into his desk and pulled out a small USB drive. Jason looked confused. My mother looked nervous. And then Mr. Bennet quietly said, "Eleanor asked me to play this only if conflict occurred." Conflict occurred. Honestly, that sounded exactly like Grandma. The screen in the office turned on, and suddenly, there she was, my grandmother, alive, smiling, wearing her favorite blue sweater. I burst into tears immediately, because hearing her voice again, even through a screen, felt like a miracle. She smiled warmly. "Hello, my family. If you're watching this, then I'm probably gone." She laughed softly, and even Mr. Bennet smiled, because that laugh, that beautiful laugh, was unmistakably Grandma. Then her expression became serious. "First, Emily, thank you." I completely broke down, because even after death, her first thoughts were kindness. "Thank you for every appointment, every meal, every conversation, and every lonely night you sat beside me." Tears streamed down my face, because nobody else in that room knew half of what we shared, but Grandma remembered. Everything. Then she looked directly at the camera. "To the rest of my family." The room froze. "I loved all of you. But love and entitlement are not the same thing." Jason lowered his eyes. My mother started crying, and my father suddenly looked very old. Then Grandma said the words nobody expected. "Emily never asked me for money. Not once. but some of you only remembered me when you needed something. Nobody moved, nobody even breathed, because deep down, everyone knew she was telling the truth. Then came the sentence that changed everything. The inheritance isn't a reward. It's a reflection of who stood beside me when life became difficult. I looked at the screen through tears, because suddenly I understood. Grandma wasn't choosing favorites, she was choosing gratitude. When the video ended, nobody spoke, not even Jason. For the first time in my life, my brother looked ashamed. Real shame. Not anger. Not jealousy. Shame. Then something happened that shocked me. My father started crying. I had only seen him cry once before, at Grandpa's funeral, and with tears in his eyes, he whispered, "We failed her." My mother buried her face in her hands, because for the first time, nobody could hide behind excuses anymore. Grandma had spoken, and the truth was undeniable. Then Jason looked at me, not angry, broken, and quietly said, "I'm sorry. Honestly, I didn't know what to say." Because an apology doesn't erase years, but it matters. And for the first time, I believed he meant it. After the meeting ended, I walked outside alone. The sun felt warm, and somehow, for the first time since Grandma passed away, I felt peace. Not because of the money, because I finally understood something. Grandma never wanted to divide the family. She wanted to reveal it. And sometimes, the truth hurts before it heals. 6 months later, something beautiful happened. My mother began volunteering at a senior center. My father started reconnecting with old friends. And Jason changed. Slowly, but genuinely. He visited me, apologized again, and eventually admitted something painful. I thought Grandma would always be there. Maybe that's the tragedy of life. We assume we have more time until we don't. As for me, I used part of Grandma's savings to create something she would have loved. A community scholarship in her name. The Eleanor Parker Kindness Fund. Because if anyone deserved to be remembered, it was her. And every year, young people chasing their dreams receive help because of the woman who once helped me believe in myself. Today, whenever I miss Grandma, I remember her final words to me. Words she told me years before she died. Never let people make you feel guilty for protecting yourself. And honestly, those words changed my life. Because family isn't defined by blood, it's defined by love. And sometimes, one document really can change everything. The end moral of the story: inheritance should honor love, sacrifice, and genuine relationships, not guilt or entitlement. The people who stand beside you during your hardest moments are often the ones who deserve your gratitude the most.